Hello, my name is Maribel, and I drove 9 hours through a snowstorm with a cake in my lap, only to find out I had been erased from my own sister's engagement party. They told people I was never invited, that I was desperate, that I made a scene. But the truth? I walked in carrying proof of love, and walked out realizing I was nothing more than a shadow in their carefully staged play. When I confronted Tahlia, she laughed and whispered, 9 hours, for what? A pity cupcake? What would you do if the family you defended your whole life turned you into the villain of their story overnight? Before we continue, make sure to subscribe and turn on the notification bell. We share new stories every single day. Hit like, and let us know what city you're watching from in the comments. I left the city just after dawn, the skyline shrinking smaller and smaller behind me in the rearview mirror. My trunk was packed tight, mostly with a towering white bakery box carefully insulated for the long ride. Tahlia had once told me she loved strawberry champagne cake more than anything in the world. So I ordered it a full week early, paid extra to have it made fresh that morning. 9 hours through sleet, ice, and white-knuckled roads, because I wanted to see her face when I finally walked in. She was my little sister, even when she did not act like it. I stopped once for gas and a hot coffee, changing into my heels inside a gas station restroom. My coat clung to me like a heavy, wet blanket. Still, I smiled, cheeks flushed from the cold wind, repeating in my head, "This is worth it. She is worth it." By the time I reached the upstate estate, my tires were crunching on gravel crusted with fresh snow. The mansion loomed like a bridal fairy tale. Golden lights twisted along the wrought iron gates, and the faint sound of a string quartet floated from the main hall. I thought, this is going to be unforgettable, just not in the way I imagined. As I handed my keys to the valet, he blinked at me twice. "Are you catering?" I laughed politely, assuming he was joking. "No, I am family." Inside, the air was warm and perfumed with vanilla and roses, but the chill from outside still clung stubbornly to my spine. Nobody greeted me. Women in pastel gowns glanced over their shoulders, lips tightening. I took a deep breath, walking in with the cake box like it was a peace offering. Then I saw her, Tahlia, in a silk blush dress, hair curled into flawless perfection. She was laughing at something a groomsman whispered, until she spotted me. Her smile faltered, then her face dropped. "You actually came?" "I drove all day," I replied, trying to sound lighter than I felt. Surprise. She did not even reach for the box. "I did not think you would, make it in this weather." I set the cake gently on the side table next to trays of mini macaroons. "Well, I did. You are getting engaged. I would not miss it." She blinked, and behind her, one of her bridesmaids, Seren, leaned in, whispering loudly enough for me to catch. She was not on the list, was she? I tried not to flinch, but then I saw it. Tahlia's expression was not one of shock, it was calculation. "I will be right back," she muttered, disappearing into a side hallway. I stood there ignored, as people flowed around me like I was part of the decor. I found my mother near the fireplace, dressed in pearls and navy. She offered a quick air kiss, then said with a strained smile, "Just do not make this about you, okay? Tonight is for Tahlia." I forced a laugh. "Of course." Then she glanced down at the wet hem of my coat and frowned. Corwin passed by. I smiled at him. He nodded, barely. I walked deeper into the house, passing framed engagement photos. Not one had me in it. By the dessert table, I overheard giggles. "Drama magnet. Every family has one. Maybe she thinks this is a rehearsal dinner for herself." They did not even bother whispering. I found the coat room to drop off my things. Inside, I saw an ornate tray labeled bridal party gifts. There were 10 boxes, sparkling jewelry, handwritten cards. My name was nowhere. I sat on the bench nearby, exhaling slow. Then my phone buzzed. A group text. Tahlia's bridal party. I was not meant to be in it. Maybe someone had accidentally added me, or maybe the universe had decided I deserved the full truth at last. One message stood out, time-stamped from earlier that day. She does not fit the look. We will say the list was full. Sent from Tahlia's number. My throat dried instantly. The corners of my eyes stung. I stepped back into the cold, breathing in the icy air like it might numb everything sharp inside me. For a moment, I just stared at the snowbanks. This was not a misunderstanding. It was a plan. The cold had barely numbed my face when a voice called out behind me. The voice I once trusted most. A voice that never even saved me a chair. The cold from outside still clung to my coat as I stood in the hallway, phone in hand, the blue glow of the group text illuminating the cracks spreading in my heart. My fingers trembled, not from the snow, but from the words etched into that thread. Tahlia's words. I stared for a moment longer, willing myself desperately to unsee them. Then, without replying, I deleted the message. But the damage was already done. The screen might have gone dark, but the echo of those sentences would ring in my mind for far too long. I pressed my lips together, inhaled deeply, and stepped back into the main banquet hall. I walked slower this time, trying to find a rhythm in my steps that did not make me feel like I was crashing headfirst into a world that had already rejected me. The music was louder now, the bass vibrating lightly through the polished floors, a carefully curated mix of celebration. Laughter swelled from the far corner where Tahlia and her bridesmaids huddled around a sparkling champagne tower. Her back was turned, but I could still see her smile. It was not for me. Tables lined the grand room, each covered in silk runners, flickering candles, and elegantly printed name cards. I scanned them all once, then twice. My name did not appear, not even a variation, not even a careless mistake. There was a table by the dessert station, one seat empty. I moved toward it with hesitant hope, clutching the folded coat in my arms like it was a fragile shield. But just before I could reach it, a server stepped in with a practiced smile and said, "Oh, I am so sorry, that seat is actually for the DJ's assistant." I nodded silently, forcing a tight smile, the kind that says, "It is okay, really okay, when it absolutely is not." So I stood in the corner alone. I filled a plastic cup with water from the refreshment table and held it with both hands, fingers curled tightly like I could squeeze comfort out of it. From where I stood, I had a clear view of the projection screen showing a photo slideshow. Childhood pictures of Tahlia flashed by, blowing out birthday candles, winning her first dance competition, hugging her closest friends at prom. Not one single image included me. I might as well have been carefully edited out of her entire life. Someone brushed past me, knocking hard into my elbow without apologizing. I moved an inch closer to the wall. Even the wall seemed far more welcoming than the people in this room. Aunt Reverie was the only one who even acknowledged me. She appeared briefly in a gown too tight for her age, and perfume so strong it nearly made me cough. "You should really try to be happy for your sister, darling," she said lightly, touching my arm. "This is her big moment. Just let her have it without questions." I swallowed my pride along with the nod stuck in my throat. Of course, I replied, voice flat and tired. But the smile I gave her was practiced, polished from years of family functions where pretending was the only survival skill. She moved on before I had the chance to respond with something real. Not that it would have mattered. No one was really listening tonight. The burn behind my eyes returned. I blinked it away once, then twice. But the third time, I gave in. I excused myself quietly and found the hallway that led toward the restrooms. Once inside a stall, I locked the door and sat back against the cold wall, the coat still clutched tightly in my arms, as if it could protect me from everything. The tears came slow at first, hot trails running down my frozen cheeks. I did not sob. I did not make a sound. I just leaked like a faucet that had been drip, drip, dripping for years, and no one had ever noticed or cared. I do not know how long I sat there, but eventually I wiped my face with the sleeve of my coat, took a deep, shaking breath, and stood up. The kind of breath you take before walking back into battle, knowing you will not win, but also refusing to lose silently. As I walked back toward the ballroom, I took a wrong turn, accidentally stepping into a service hallway I had not noticed before. The walls were tighter here, lined with rolling carts, trays of food, and the lingering smell of detergent. I paused to reorient myself, and that was when I heard it. Laughter. Familiar laughter. Then a voice. Tahlia's voice. I froze instantly. She was just around the bend, talking to someone. Maybe Seren. Their tones were light, tipsy, unguarded. And then I heard my name. Accidents are revealing. I did not move. I did not even breathe. Their voices carried from just around the corner, bouncing sharply off the kitchen tile. I could see their shadows stretching across the linoleum floor. Tahlia's curls bobbing as she gestured with a champagne glass in one hand, and Seren perched on a stool, legs swinging lazily. "I cannot believe she actually drove all the way here," Seren said, laughter already curled in her voice like a spark waiting for fuel. Tahlia replied without missing a beat. 9 hours through a blizzard, and for what? A pitty little cupcake? The sound of Seren's snort was sharp, ugly and mean. She has always been desperate for attention, God knows. What if she had crashed along the way? Tahlia chuckled, and something in her tone cut deeper than I expected. Honestly, I could have used the silence, and maybe even the sympathy. The laugh they shared afterward echoed. It was not just cruel, it was practiced. I backed away slowly, like any sudden movement might expose me. I did not care where I was going. I just needed space. I turned down a hallway that smelled of rosemary and harsh cleaning bleach, stumbled into the restroom, locked the stall, and finally let myself cry without holding back. I wanted to scream, to demand answers, to storm out and throw that damn cake across the room. But I did not. Instead, I pressed the back of my hand to my mouth, willing my sobs into silence. My phone buzzed in my pocket, one notification, a weather alert, not a single message from anyone at the party, not a check-in, not a, "Hey, where are you?" Not even from my mother. Nothing. I pulled up my text thread with her anyway, just to be sure. The last message was from me, just arrived. Cannot wait to see everyone. It had been read. No reply. My fingers scrolled through old messages on autopilot. I stopped at a photo from last Christmas. Tahlia opening a gift, our mom smiling behind her, me partially cropped out at the edge. I remembered birthdays where no one showed up, college move-in day where my roommate's mom brought decorations, while mine just dropped me at the curb with a tight hug and a quick, "Make us proud." And when I got promoted last year, the family newsletter did not even mention it, but Tahlia getting featured in a yoga studio flyer, full paragraph. I wiped my face, checked myself in the mirror. My eyes were red, but dry. My jaw clenched tight. My chest felt like stone. When I walked back toward the hall, I passed through the kitchen, hoping no one would notice. I saw the cake sitting where I had left it, carefully packed in that silver box with the gold ribbon I had picked out at 1 o'clock in the morning the night before. I took it out, removed the lid, and stared at it. A delicate 3-layer lemon cake with sugared violets and a fondant banner that read, "To love, to laughter, to forever." It was still perfect, untouched. I set it on the counter. A server spotted me. "Ma'am, I am truly sorry, but guests are not allowed back here." "I'm just leaving now, it is fine," I said quietly. "It is fine, truly fine." I did not wait for him to finish. I slipped quickly through the service exit, pulling my coat tight around my shoulders. The wind bit at my cheeks as I stepped into the snow, but somehow it stung far less than what I had just overheard. I reached my car, sat behind the wheel, and stared at my phone once again. 14 missed calls from numbers I recognized, but none of them mattered anymore. I powered it off, tossed it onto the passenger seat like dead weight. That night, I did not go home. I found a roadside motel, paid in cash, and did not leave my name at the desk. I slept with the television still on, still fully dressed, waiting for the heartbreak to dull itself into silence. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the faded floral wallpaper, listening to the low hum of the air conditioner, even though it was freezing outside. The remote lay untouched beside me. I could not bring myself to watch anything. Not a sitcom to laugh at, not a drama to distract me, not even the news. Instead, I played that hallway conversation over and over again in my mind. Every single word Tahlia had said felt carved into my skin. How many times had I given her the benefit of the doubt? How often had I defended her choices, even when they made no sense to me? I had driven through whiteouts for her. She could not even lift a phone to warn me I was not wanted. And yet, part of me still wanted desperately to believe this was not who she truly was. But deep down I already knew it was. I curled beneath the motel comforter, scratchy against my arms, and whispered softly to the ceiling, "What am I even doing here, honestly?" No answer came. Just the wind outside rattling the window pane, like it wanted to remind me I had always been on the outside looking in. The motel curtains did not block much sunlight. I woke up disoriented, still in my clothes from the night before, the faint smell of buttercream and snow clinging stubbornly to my coat, draped on the chair. My phone was blinking again and again, filled with missed calls and unread messages. I sat up slowly and grabbed it off the side table, bracing myself not for concern, but for what I already knew was waiting. "You embarrassed Tahlia. Why would you leave the cake and disappear? You've always had such a flair for drama." Not one message asked, "Are you okay?" I scrolled further, numb fingers tapping the cold glass. The texts kept coming. A cousin I had not heard from in 2 years chimed in with, "You always make absolutely everything about you. It was her night, not yours." And then came the one that made my stomach turn. "Mom," in the family group chat. "She has been emotionally unstable lately. Just give her some space for now." That was the story now. That I had shown up, caused a scene, and stormed out because I could not handle someone else's joy. No one mentioned that I brought a handmade cake after driving through a blizzard. No one asked about the bruising things I had overheard. No one wanted to know why I left. Because the answer was simply too inconvenient. They needed a villain, and I had been nominated unanimously, it seemed. By mid-morning, Tahlia had posted a photo from the party on Instagram. I stared at it for a full minute. She stood beaming, surrounded by her bridesmaids in matching white faux fur shawls. The caption read, "A perfect night with all the people I love so much. #blessed, #engaged life." I was not in the photo. I was not tagged. I was not even a footnote. I blinked down at a message from an old friend. "Hey, were you not supposed to be at the party? Tahlia said you could not make it. Everything okay with you?" I did not reply. I just stared at the glowing screen, realizing the rewrite of the story had already begun. It was not only that they wanted me gone. It was that they wanted me completely erased from existence. I sat in that cheap motel bed, the mattress springs poking uncomfortably through the thin sheets, and let my memories unspool like a film I could not stop. My high school graduation, no family photo. My first apartment, no housewarming gift. My last birthday. A gift card unsigned, tossed carelessly into my hand. This was not new. It had always been there. It had just finally made itself visible, like dust suddenly catching the sharp beam of sunlight. I packed slowly, wiping down the bathroom counter with a tissue out of sheer habit, even though no one would notice. Before I left town, I drove back past the estate. The snow had been shoveled clean, as though the night had never even happened. Lights still twinkled cheerfully on the trees out front, oblivious to the wreckage inside me. I parked across the street and stared at the building. Through a side window near the kitchen, I could still see it. The cake box, still sealed, still untouched, sitting exactly where I had left it. I snapped a photo through the glass. Not for revenge, but for proof. Because someday, someone might ask, Was it really that bad? And I needed to be able to say, yes, it was, and here is what you did not see. What would you do if the people you trusted the most erased you so easily? Share your feelings and stories in the comments. Type the number 1 if you have ever carried silent pain just to keep the peace. Back in my car, I plugged in my phone, finally checking voicemail. There were 14 missed calls and 1 message from Tahlia. Look, we really need to talk, but not in front of people. You took things way too personally. I did not delete it. I just let it sit there, while the sun crawled lower in the sky, casting long blue shadows across the snowbank beside my car. I did not call her back, but for the first time in years, I smiled, because I was not going to explain myself anymore. Let them talk. Let them twist. They had written their version. Now I was ready to write mine. The snow had melted slightly overnight, leaving crusty patches of slush outside my apartment window. I sat at the kitchen table, still in my sleep shirt and leggings, coffee gone cold beside me. I had not planned to answer her call, but I was done hiding behind silence. So when Tahlia's name flashed on the screen, I pressed accept and propped my phone against the sugar canister. The screen flickered, and there she was, polished, mascara still clinging to her lashes, the same soft curl in her hair from 2 nights ago, perfectly curated, just like always. "You picked the weirdest time to ghost," she said before I even got a word in. People are asking all kinds of questions. I did not speak. Tahlia leaned closer to her camera, her tone dropping. "You always overreact. You take things far too personally. This weekend was not about you." Still, I stayed quiet. I had learned that silence made them more uncomfortable than any argument. "I did not mean for you to hear anything," she continued, like that was supposed to make it all better. "You know how I get when I am nervous. I say dumb little things. Siren was just being funny. You took it completely out of context." She paused, clearly waiting for my forgiveness, or at least my guilt. I straightened my spine and finally spoke. "I nearly died getting there, Tahlia." She blinked. "I drove through a blizzard. I brought a cake I ordered weeks ago. I was drenched, cold, and exhausted. But I showed up. And what I got in return was hearing you joke about me crashing, about how silence would have been more convenient. That is not fair." "No," I interrupted, holding her gaze. "What is not fair is being treated like a ghost at your own event. No seat, no photos, no acknowledgement. You erased me from your engagement like I was nothing more than a stain on your perfect white dress." She scoffed, that laugh she always uses when she is cornered. "You are making this into a whole unnecessary thing. I am not the villain here." I tilted my head. "Then stop acting exactly like one." Tahlia's expression hardened, her tone sharp. "You are trying to ruin my special moment. You are making this so ugly." "I am not making anything," I said calmly, my voice steady. "I am just finally done letting you rewrite the truth." She started talking over me again, faster now, desperate to steer the conversation back under her control. I did not hang up. I muted her. For 30 long seconds I watched her talk at the screen, unaware that I could not hear her. She waved her hands, her mouth pulled tight, and her eyes wild with panic. Then she finally noticed I was not reacting. I ended the call. No slamming, no outburst, no drama. Just one quiet press of a button. For once, she got to feel the echo of speaking into nothing. I stared at the blank screen for a moment before opening my email. I attached the catering invoice. The subject line was clean. Receipt, cake, Tahlia's engagement. The body of the email had only one sentence. "Attached is the receipt for the cake I paid for, the one that was left behind." I sent it to Mom, to Aunt Reverie, and to Tahlia. Within minutes, a reply came from Mom's address. Just 4 words. "This is not helping, Maribel." I leaned back in my chair, exhaling slowly. No apology, no ownership. Just another attempt to steer the spotlight away from what mattered. But I was not 15 anymore, trying to prove I belonged at the adult table. I was not 22 anymore, desperate for approval when I landed my first job, and no one came to the celebration dinner. I was not begging anymore. I was documenting. And the truth was finally louder than their carefully curated silence. By the time I finished my second cup of coffee Monday morning, my inbox had a new message. Subject line, "Enough," from my mother. I opened it, expecting another cold reprimand, but this was different. Not angry, not concerned, calculated. "You have embarrassed our family enough. You are lucky you were even invited. Then do not ruin Tahlia's future out of jealousy." Attached beneath her note was a screenshot from a private group chat titled Family Core Planning Only. I was not in it, obviously, but they had been talking about me. Tahlia had written, "She is not well. You know she has always twisted things. Just wait, she will spin this into some sob story." Mom had replied with a thumbs up. Seren chimed in, "We really tried to include her. She is the one who always makes everything so dramatic." The narrative was already spreading like rot beneath floorboards. Quiet, dirty, hard to contain. And now it had a paper trail. What really hit was not only the betrayal, but how rehearsed it all felt. Like they had contingency plans ready for me being a problem, and when I did not give them one, they simply invented it. I leaned back from my laptop. The radiator hissed beside me, slow and steady, and I realized something in that moment. I was not hurt anymore. I was awake. Around noon, a coworker from my firm sent me a Slack message. "Hey, just so you know, someone shared a screenshot of a vague Instagram post about a meltdown. Bride's sister, is that you?" My pulse spiked. I checked Instagram, searched Tahlia's profile. She had posted a pastel-filtered photo of her holding champagne, her head tilted back in laughter. The caption read, "Sometimes jealousy wears a familiar face, but real love always shines through." I did not need her to tag me. Everyone close to both her and me would know exactly who she meant, and that would have been bad enough. But then a local wedding gossip blog had reposted the photo, complete with a short anonymous story, submitted by a bridesmaid at a recent upstate celebration. It described a family member arriving uninvited, demanding attention, and supposedly having a breakdown before vanishing. My mouth went dry. This was not family drama anymore. This was public, and that changed absolutely everything. I did not scream. I did not throw anything. Instead, I opened a folder on my desktop titled Truth, neatly labeled. Inside were photos of the snow-covered roads, the receipt for the cake, a video clip of the untouched silver box through the kitchen window, and screenshots of the messages I was never meant to see. I opened Instagram and posted 3 images. The first, the cake sitting in the snow-lit kitchen. The second, my frost-covered windshield after 9 relentless hours on the road. The third, a simple selfie I had taken outside the venue, wet hair, red cheeks, holding the cake box tightly in my arms. My caption read, "Sometimes you show up for people who would not even shovel your name off a sidewalk. But that is exactly how you learn. Some things you do out of love. Some things teach you clearly who deserves it." I turned off the comments after 2 hours, right after they started pouring in. Some supportive, some confused, some asking loudly for the full story. I was not ready to give it all, but I had given them enough to shift the balance. Then I opened my Gmail, composed a new message, and attached a PDF containing both the chat screenshot and the Instagram post. The recipient, the PR department of the company where Corwin, Tahlia's fiancé, worked. I did not include any commentary, no explanations, just the materials. If he wanted a marriage based on curated lies, let him see exactly how those lies were built. No revenge, I whispered aloud into the quiet room. Just consequences, nothing else. That evening, as the snow returned and began to patter gently against my windows, my phone buzzed again. A text from Seren. "You did not hear this from me, but Tahlia's fiancé just postponed the engagement dinner with his parents. He said something suddenly came up. I did not respond. I did not need to. I curled up on my couch, lit a candle, and pulled the thick blanket over my legs. For once, I did not feel like the storm in the story. I felt like the break in the clouds. Saturday morning arrived, dressed in sunshine, pretending nothing was broken. But the moment I stepped into Auntie Velle's house, I could feel it. That crackling electricity in the air, the kind that hums right before lightning finally strikes. Auntie Velle greeted me at the door with a polite squeeze of my shoulder and a whisper, "Do not ever let them make you small. Not tonight." Inside, it was brunch theatre. White platters of sliced melon and sugar-dusted pastries, too many people in cream-colored sweaters pretending calm. The smell of syrup hung in the air, but it did not mask the tension coiling tight. I took a seat near the window, where no one had to look me in the eye if they did not want to. Most chose not to. Tahlia stood at the far end of the dining room, champagne flute in hand, center stage as always. She smiled like a polished politician and tapped her glass. "I just want to say," she started, drawing out her words like honey dripping slowly from a spoon, "this week has reminded me how truly beautiful it is when family chooses love over ego." There it was. The dig. Smooth, practiced, poisonous. Someone laughed nervously. A few eyes darted toward me. I sipped my orange juice slowly. I was done pretending I did not hear the barbed tone beneath her words. I stood up, calm and deliberate. "Mind if I say something too, just for a moment?" She blinked. Aunt Yvelle's fork stopped midair. A hush rolled across the table like fog blanketing a harbor. "I drove 9 hours in a snowstorm for that party," I began, "with a cake I paid for, which sat untouched in the kitchen while people who claimed to love me laughed about me dying on the road." Gasps. Seren choked slightly on her mimosa. My mother's face drained of color. Tahlia's mouth opened, but I raised my hand, not to silence her, but to hold the floor just this once. "I heard you, Tahlia, you and Seren through the kitchen door, laughing about how peaceful things would be if I never showed up at all." She shook her head, trying to recover. "Maribel, that was taken completely out of context. You know it." I did not let her finish. I pulled out my phone, unlocked it, and hit play. The room filled with their laughter. Tahlia's voice unmistakable. "9 hours for what? A pitty little cupcake?" Then Seren giggling. "What if she crashed? Imagine the sympathy and the silence." I paused it there. "That is the context," I said softly. Corwin looked stunned, blinking at Tahlia like he did not recognize her face. My mother reached for her wineglass, hands trembling. No one moved to defend her. No one could. Tahlia stood frozen, lips parted in silent horror. Then she lunged toward me. "You do not get to twist this into your narrative," she snapped. I took a step back, phone still in hand. "You twisted it the second you decided humiliation was easier than honesty." "I called you jealous because you are," she hissed. "And I called your bluff," I answered louder this time. "You needed a villain in your story so badly you forgot what it cost to make one." The air shifted. The silence was not heavy. It was sharp, cutting, real. I did not stay for dessert. As I walked to the door, Aunt Yvelle followed quietly, placing a hand on my back. Her voice was a whisper, but it carried the weight of a boulder. "You did not just clear your name, honey. You burned the whole script." I did not reply. I did not have to. The silence they left behind followed me home, but I was not alone anymore. Tahlia's words still echoed behind me, like the last gust of wind before calm. I did not sleep much that night. Not because I was anxious, but because something in me had shifted, settled. When you walk through a storm that fierce and come out still standing, it is not the storm you remember. It is the silence after. I woke up Saturday morning to 3 notifications, before I had even rolled out of bed. The first was from Selwyn, a childhood neighbor I had not spoken to in years. "Did you hear?" she had written. "Engagement dinner is off. His parents asked for a pause. That is their word, not mine. I stared at the screen, blinking through sleep and disbelief. I had not expected it to unravel this quickly, not this fast. Next came a vague status from Aunt Reverie. Truth burns at first, but it sets you free if you are ready to face it. No names, no hashtags, but everyone reading it would know exactly who she meant. The last notification was a photo from the brunch, me holding the microphone mid-sentence. Someone had shared it into a private family thread with the caption, "Unhinged, attention-seeking, just like always." I did not reply. I did not need to. That part of me that used to ache for explanation, that used to scream silently, "Just see me," was finally done asking. Instead, I poured myself a cup of coffee and stared out my window at the slushy street. Across the room, an old box of journals sat half open, spilling years of written-over pages. I pulled one out, flipped through, and landed on a sentence scribbled in teenage handwriting. "Maybe if I am quieter, they will love me louder." I tore the page out, lit a match over the sink, and watched it curl and turn into ash. That girl did not live here anymore. The day passed slowly, like everything was catching up all at once. At sunset, my phone buzzed again. It was from him. Corwin, Tahlia's fiancé. Or maybe ex-fiancé now. I hesitated, then opened it. "I am sorry," he wrote. "You did not deserve that treatment. I heard everything, every single word. I did not speak up, and I regret it deeply." I read the message twice, not because I needed to feel vindicated, just because I was surprised. There was something in his tone that did not ask for forgiveness. It offered accountability. It did not fix anything, but it meant I was not crazy. An hour later, another message arrived. From Seren. "I am not proud of who I was that night. Nothing more. No excuse, no explanation." And yet, it hit me harder than any insult she had ever whispered. That night, I sat at my kitchen table and opened a blank post. Sometimes it takes a blizzard to see clearly. This is for anyone who has ever been made to feel like they were too much just for existing. I did not hit publish. Not yet. But I saved it. My voice no longer needed a spotlight. It just needed space. Just as I was about to close my laptop, my phone vibrated again. One message, one word. "Please, Tahlia." I stared at it for a long time, longer than I care to admit. My heart did not jump. My hands did not shake. I did not smile. Because now I understood the difference between missing someone and missing who you always hoped they could be. I placed the phone down and walked to the window. Snow had started to fall again, lighter this time, softer. And for once, it was not falling on me. I was the storm, and I was the clearing sky. I did not respond to her message that night. I let it sit unread, but not unseen, like a suitcase packed for a trip no one wanted to take. A full week passed before I finally dialed her number. When she picked up, her voice was so small I almost did not recognize it. "You just left me," she whispered. "You disappeared, Maribel, after everything." I leaned back into my couch, the same spot I sat in that night I got home from the storm. "That is how I felt since I was 9, Tahlia." There was no venom in my voice, just a quiet truth. And I think that was what startled her most. She did not fight. She did not spin. Not this time. "I messed up," she said. "I was cruel. I did not want you to come, because I knew people would compare us again. And I hated the way that always made me feel." "Then you should have told me," I replied softly but firmly. "I would have still sent the cake, but I just would not have driven through a blizzard to bring it there myself." She went silent for a while, before finally saying, almost in a whisper, "I started therapy this week." I closed my eyes, part disbelief, part relief. Good. I think that is the most human thing I have heard you say in years. She tried to laugh, but it did not come out fully, breaking midway into something fragile. My fiancé has not spoken to me since that brunch. He said he needs time to figure things out. Maybe he is learning what I did, I said. That silence can be louder than screaming. Tahlia started crying then. Real crying, not the attention-seeking kind I had seen 100 times before. I did not comfort her. I did not try to cuddle her pain away, but I also did not hang up. I do not hate you, I said finally, after a long pause. But I cannot just go back to how things were. I am done playing the background. I did not expect a reply. She just stayed on the line, breathing softly through the distance, and after a few more moments, we both hung up. Nothing dramatic, just done. Later that night, I opened the draft I had saved. I reread it 3 times before finally hitting post. To the quiet one at the table. You are not invisible. You do not need their permission to speak. Sometimes your story begins exactly where their lies end. It did not take long before notifications lit up my screen. Messages from old classmates, co-workers, even extended family members I had not heard from in years. Some apologized. Some just wrote, "Thank you." I did not respond to most. I did not need to. The next morning, I walked 2 blocks in the chilly air to the little bakery near my apartment, the same one I had visited a month ago when I placed that order for the cake that never got cut. This time, I ordered another one. Something simple, just white frosting with a dusting of gold. No names, no messages, just peace. Back home, I lit a candle on top and sat by the window, slicing the first piece for myself. I did not toast. I did not cry. I just sat and ate, quiet, complete. Outside, the snow had long melted. Puddles gathered along the curbs, reflecting clear skies above. Not every ending needed to be loud. Some just needed to be honest. And this one belonged to me. Sometimes the storm does not come to destroy. It comes to clear the air. And I have learned, in the hardest way, that silence is not always peace. Speaking up for myself does not make me cruel. It makes me free. I am no longer the girl who begged for space at the table. I am the woman who builds her own. Have you ever felt like you were too much simply for existing? Or had to walk away from family just to finally claim your own voice? Share your thoughts and your experiences in the comments. I truly want to hear them, because every story matters. If you believe in stories that heal, that fight back, that carry weight in silence and strength, please like this video, share it, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you will not miss the next one. Your voice belongs here. Type "Choose Freedom" in the comments if this story speaks to you. Thank you for spending your time with me today. I will see you in the next video.